Welcome to the Lessons for Luca podcast. I'm your host, Michael DeSanti, author of New Man Emerging, transformational trainer and coach, and most importantly, I'm Luca's dad. On this episode, I want to talk about nice guy syndrome or people-pleasing syndrome. It's something that a lot of men struggle with, a lot of women struggle with. What is it? Where does it come from? And then what do we do to correct it? The nice guy syndrome or people-pleasing syndrome is when we are constantly putting other people's needs before ours. We say yes when we genuinely want to say no or should say no. We constantly feel over-leveraged or overextended because we really shrink who we are to fill the cups and meet the needs of everybody else. What that tends to leave us with, what that tends to leave people pleasers or nice guys with, is constantly feeling empty, like my fuel tank is empty, or it actually leaves us with a deep pit of resentment towards others because I'm putting all this energy and effort into you and I feel like I'm getting, crumbs back. So I'm living in this constant state of depletion. And that tends to emotionally show up as resentment or anger or feeling unappreciated. And so there's a reason behind this, but there's several reasons behind it. So when we look at not simply just our personal point of origin, we actually have to look at our biological conditioning and functioning. Our biology is built, or the parts of the nervous system, the sympathetic nervous system is built and designed simply to have you survive. That part of the nervous system and that portion of the brain, the amygdala portion of the brain, some people call it the reptilian portion of the brain, sees the world in black and white because it has one function or one job: keep you alive. So you're alive or you're dead. There is no nuance to the survival portion of your brain. One job and mission: you're alive or you're dead. Its one function is to keep you alive. So some of our survival instincts and mechanisms and conditioning, they're there to keep you alive. So there is a beneficial purpose to it. When that survival instinct overrides or overextends into your personal or emotional life, then it starts to make its way into the shadow portion of your life, and it'll self-sabotage your relationships, self-sabotage your health. It's operating way beyond its threshold, and it actually becomes a liability rather than an asset. So let's explain this in a simple biological way, and then we'll get to how that manifests into our emotional or relational component. Most people have heard of fight or flight. That's a survival mechanism. A lot of people have heard of fight, flight, or freeze. But there's actually a fourth component. There's fight, flight, freeze, and fawn. And the fawn mechanism of survival is actually where the people pleaser originates, and that's the genesis of it. So if I give an example of, my wife and I, we spend our summers in Montana. We love hiking in the mountains and exploring and adventuring in the mountains, but it's bear country. It's predator country. We're not the top of the food chain when we're there, so we're really, really conscious of predators. If I'm on a trail, and I'll go through each option. If I'm on a trail and a grizzly bear comes and attacks me, there is going to be a survival mechanism in my instinct and in my conditioning that kicks in, and that would be the fight mechanism. I'm not saying this is what you should do if confronted or attacked by a grizzly bear. I'm just giving you the four options of survival. The one is to fight that predator. The body kicks up all kinds of adrenaline and all kinds of hormone. The body kicks up all kinds of cortisol, and it makes you bigger and stronger and faster. And the body and the nervous system determines my best chance of survival here is to fight that grizzly bear or fight that predator. Now, I don't suspect that I would have a very good percentage of winning that fight, but however, the nervous system would kick into the fight mechanism. The second option is if I'm on a trail and I see a grizzly bear in the distance and I see that it is 200 yards away, my nervous system will kick in, my survival instinct will kick in because it's determined, it's far enough away, run. That would be the flight mechanism. That I've determined, my body and my nervous system has determined that there's enough distance between me and the grizzly bear, me and the predator, that I'm going to take off. And that adrenaline is going to make me faster and stronger for a brief amount of time. And I'm going to flee, run, or flight until I'm in safety. That would be the second option of survival. Third option of survival is I'm walking down a trail. I see a grizzly bear. The grizzly bear doesn't see me. It's 30 yards ahead. And my body and my nervous system determines the best chance of survival: freeze, paralyze, lock up, stop breathing, tighten the body, make no motion. The goal there is that animals detect motion. So if I freeze and lock up, that ideally and hopefully the predator, the grizzly bear, will move on and find me undetectable. That would be my best chance of survival in the freeze mechanism. The fourth option, though, which is not normally talked about, is that I'm walking down a trail, I see a predator, the predator sees me, and there's a good amount of distance between us. A good option of survival would be for me to talk to the predator, tell the predator I'm not a threat, I'm not here to harm you, to have a certain tone, to have a certain posture that is unthreatening. And you, grizzly bear, I'm not here to harm you. You go about your day, I'll go about my day. And that I actually take this fawn posture, that I actually, a good chance of survival, or potentially my best chance of survival, is to get the predator to like me or to see me as not a threat so that it doesn't attack me. That is a fourth option of survival. And the nervous system has that biological programming. So why does that matter? Well, in our personal point of origin, when we're young and we're building our worldview through our family dynamic and our caretaker dynamic, and our main motivating factors are to get love, attention, acceptance, affection, and approval. And as we are orienting to life, our dynamic, what's happening around us, our environment, the way our parents are with each other, the way our parents are with us and our siblings, that mechanism is available. And if I feel as though I'm not getting love, attention, acceptance, affection, and approval, my four options are to fight for it, freeze, run, avoid, or fawn. And in that fawn mechanism, I could actually have the opportunity to say, like, oh, you know what? In order for me to get love, attention, affection, and approval and acceptance, let me just make everybody happy. Let me put a smile on mom's face. Let me repair when they're fighting. And I'll interject myself and become the peacemaker, or take it on myself and go in and rescue, or go in and try to smooth everything out. That might sound innocent, and to a little kid it would be. It might sound as a healthy option, and for some of those opportunities it is a healthy option. But what starts to happen is that as a little kid, and that family dynamic and that caretaker dynamic, I start to realize that when I make everyone happy, or make everyone smile, or sweep things under the rug, or not address things, or not speak up, or not rock the boat, that I actually get an emotional reward for it. I get a payoff for it. I get attention, or I get love, or I get affection, or I get approval, or I get acceptance. And I start to now build in my emotional programming, and in my conclusion, and in my personal narrative, that it's my job to make everyone happy. It's my job to put everyone's needs first. It's my job to make sure no one is that the boat isn't rocked, that everyone has to feel okay all the time. And if they're not, then that's my fault. That becomes the common conditioning of that default, of that survival default. This is really common in personal history and points of origin where there was some chaos in the house. Parents didn't get along with each other. There was constant fighting or bickering. There was some level of unpredictability. As kids, in our defaults and in our programming, we'll fill that space. So if there isn't If there isn't a lot of love and affection in the household, a lot of times when we're young, we'll just claim that space. We'll put it in. We'll inject it. But over time, unconsciously, what that does is that starts to create an overemphasis and an over-reliance on that fawn feature of survival. Staying here for a minute before we get into adulthood, there is, when we are young and we're developing, especially in our formative years, we have what's called a self-blame mechanism. And I won't get too far into it, but when we are young, our parents are really like godlike figures to us. They keep us fed, they keep us safe, they keep us warm. So biological programming when we're young is a child won't interrupt or harm that caretaker attachment. We don't really have the agency to be able to reason that, oh, my dad is having a bad day, let me give him some space. Or, mom seems really tired, let me stay out of her hair for a little bit today. We don't have that level of reasoning. When our parents are upset with each other, when our parents are upset with us, when our parents are upset overall, we have a biological function called a self-blame mechanism. The kid doesn't have the reasoning to blame the parent or reasoning to just say, oh, my dad is having a bad day or my mom is having a bad day. There's a biological function that the kid will actually blame themselves. That because as children, we won't do anything to harm that caretaker attachment because we depend on them for survival. So that self-blame mechanism kicks in. Dad's having a bad day. It's my fault. Mom is upset with me. Mom is upset, period. It's my fault. Mom and dad are bickering, whatever it is. The self-blame mechanism makes it personal to the kid. Now, what happens is it's really the responsibility of a conscious caretaker to help that kid recognize that self-blame mechanism is turned on and then help them turn it off. It sounds very simple, but it's, simply earlier today when I got upset with you, that's on me. You don't need to carry that. Let's make a new commitment going forward that as a caretaker, I promise to be more patient with you. Something that simple helps that developing kid, turn off that psychological self-blame mechanism. Now, again, I've said it before, there's no perfect parents, there's no perfect kids, there's no perfect outcomes. The best we could do is constantly self-correct. And as caretakers or as parents, it's really on us to recognize when that self-blame mechanism is activated in our kids and then help them turn it off by taking full responsibility of our own state as caretakers. If we don't, the kid will carry it. If the kid carries it and doesn't have conscious parents to help them turn that mechanism off, the kid will bring that into adulthood and it'll wear like anxiety. And if we go back to that fawning mechanism, that anxiety carried into adulthood will look like so-and-so is upset, it's my fault. My wife is upset, it's my fault. My employee is upset, my boss is upset, a stranger is upset, it's my fault, and it's my responsibility to make them happy. And that's actually the genesis of how now we take that fawn survival mechanism and we bring it into our adult relationships. When we were young, it was an appropriate mechanism at an appropriate time of survival. When we're older, it is an appropriate mechanism at an inappropriate time. And what starts to happen is we start to over-rely and overemphasize that it's my job to make everyone happy. It's my job to rescue everyone. It's my job to stay loyal even in unhealthy or dangerous situations. And that fawn mechanism of survival starts to run our life and run our relationships. And that's what we call nice guy syndrome or people pleaser syndrome. It is an old default that wears the narrative and the anxiety that it's my job to make everyone happy. Why is that a problem? Well, there's the simple answer to that is it is impossible to make everyone happy all the time. And so if that is the reality, it's impossible to make everyone happy all of the time, but my default is programmed to make everyone happy all the time. That means I'm setting myself up for disappointment and failure. And if I live in the posture of an unsustainable game, an unwinnable game, the way I show up to my relationships, I'm always going to be on fumes. I'm always going to be in a state of resentment. I'm always going to be in a state of resistance because this anxiety is running me to make everyone happy all the time. That's an unwinnable game. So it's simply a matter of time before I run out of runway. It's a matter of time before that unsustainability starts to show itself. It's going to cost me energy. It's going to cost me peace of mind. It's going to cost me personal power. I'm going to be overextended in places that I actually have no control. If my wife is having a bad day, that may have absolutely nothing to do with me. If an employee is upset, they may have absolutely nothing to do with me. But if I default to that fawn mechanism, I'm going to make everything personal. And I'm going to make everything so personal that it's actually going to have me self-abandon who I am so that I'm not rocking the boat. I'm not upsetting anyone. I'm not coloring outside the box. I'm not drawing outside the lines. I'm not getting creative. I'm actually trapped by other people's opinions, other people's perceptions. What will other people say? What will other people think? And it'll actually create this psychological and emotional prison. And then we get trapped in it, but we don't realize we're the ones trapping ourselves in it. And so now every time I walk into a room, I'm on eggshells. Every time I'm around, loud or uncomfortable people, I'm on eggshells. I watch what I say. I watch how I'm perceived. I let my image start to run me, and I won't rock the boat. I won't create any level of instability. Now, I want to be really cautious of this because there is a light side to this and there is a shadow side to this. I'm talking about the shadow side here, which is, it leaves us in a state of resentment. It leaves us in a state of depletion, and it leaves us in, always feeling like we're running on fumes or on empty. There is a light side to that, or a healthy component to that. Making people happy is a skill. Being loyal to people through hard times is a skill, a valuable skill. Rescuing style, which has a ton of empathy to it, is that when we see people in harm or in harm's way or not getting their fair shake, we intervene. That is a skill. That requires empathy. That requires understanding. That requires a whole different way of relating with people. That is a skill set. That does not mean abandon that skill set because over here is causing you harm or resentment. It means integrating it until it's a healthy proportion. That I have this skill to walk in a room and make people happy or make people feel as though they feel heard and validated and seen. And I don't need to personalize their state. I don't need to take on so much that it's actually weighing me down. It is nice guy. The remedy to nice guy syndrome is not become a prick. Those would both be two unconscious extremes. Those would be two unconscious postures. It doesn't mean that to go from here as a people pleaser now to pendulum all the way to the other side and just go and be an asshole and blow everything up, because that's some level of remedy. They're both extremes, and extremes are unsustainable. Harmony, balance, centeredness, sturdiness, groundedness, integrativeness is the remedy. Doesn't mean that I have to pendulum back and forth and create these dramatic extremes. It just requires that with a little self-consciousness and awareness and the ability to create healthy boundaries, just starts to establish, where do I begin and end? What's mine and what's the other person's? What's mine and what's everyone else's? What am I capable of and what am I incapable of? Where do I get to say yes and where do I get to say no? Because that's healthy for me. That's within my capacity. That's within my bandwidth. One of the most challenging things for The fawn default and the people pleaser or nice guy default is healthy boundaries. The ability to state, this is where I begin and end. This is what I value, and I communicate that value, I demonstrate that value, and I let you know what works for me and what doesn't. What's a yes and what's a no, or what's a yes but not right now. That becomes one of the biggest challenges of the people pleaser default. The people pleaser default will say yes to everything, even though they want to or should say no. The people pleaser will say yes, even if they're overextended, even if they're over leveraged. And then when they follow through and they make it happen, they don't get the recognition and the acknowledgement and the appreciation that they wanted, or at least that was equivalent to their effort. And now they're left depleted and resentful. It is on us to heal that old default of survival fawning, to challenge those narratives and those conclusions and those belief systems that it's my job to make everyone happy. It's my job to overextend myself and come and rescue everyone. That is an unwinnable game. What is a winnable game is to have a very clear blueprint of what you can do and what you can't do, of what you're capable of and what you're incapable of. Establish a clear value of your life, protect that value, and communicate it effectively. At first, that is going to be uncomfortable to a people pleaser. At first, that's going to be really uncomfortable to a nice guy, because the default is just to say yes to everyone all the time. That is unhealthy, unsustainable. It's an unwinnable game. It's going to land you in resentments. It's going to land you, it's going to crush polarity in relationships. It's an interesting thing where it's going to be like, I spent all this energy and you're still not happy. That is not a sustainable place to be in your relationships, especially your romantic relationships. By tempering that back to a healthy, winnable, communicatable, clear, concise blueprint of my own inner world, and communicating that effectively to our wives, our husbands, our partners, our spouses, our teams, our friends. It might be uncomfortable at first. It may require a tremendous amount of courage and commitment on your part. But the more and more you establish those boundaries of what works and what doesn't, what I'm capable of and what I'm incapable of, what I can do and what I can't do, and communicating that effectively, not from my point of origin and from my history that's running me, but from a place of presence and a place of power that says, I would love to be able to help here. I'm just unable to. Will this other option work for you? I would love to be able to say yes here, but I'm focused on this. It's outside of my bandwidth at the current time. I'll let you know when could work. I know that might not sound like a dramatic act of courage, but for people that are on that default of nice guy, of fawning, of people pleasing, that is incredibly uncomfortable. And it's incredibly required and necessary. Otherwise, you become so overextended that takers in life will find you. You will have a bullseye on your back to be taken advantage of, and your partner will actually lose respect for you. It's a fascinating thing that people in this default think that if I just do everything for everyone all the time, everyone's going to love me, everyone's going to respect me, everyone's going to think I'm amazing. Not true. It seems counterintuitive, but it's not true. People respect and love people that first love themselves and clearly communicate where they begin and end. I want you to hear me really, really clearly. There is no love that is worth you abandoning who you are. There is no love worth you abandoning who you are. Love does not require for you to be living on fumes all day long and making everyone else happy while you yourself are depleted. Love has you factored into the equation. Compassion has you factored into the equation. Empathy has you factored into the equation. That is a huge, huge component of understanding and recognizing when you're overextended is that you are left depleted. Love does require elements of sacrifice, especially parenthood or partnership. But sacrifice means I'm willing to be uncomfortable now for a greater return for us all in the future. I'm willing to sacrifice sleepless nights and investing our future, our money, and our energy. I'm willing to be uncomfortable now for a greater potential return for my family in the future. That's sacrifice. What people pleasers operate in is compromise. That I'm willing to shrink myself and be uncomfortable to make everyone else happy, and starting to recognize that that's an unsustainable game, and yet I'm going to do it over and over and over again. And in that process, we self-abandon. In that process, we lose who we are. We lose connection to our heart. We lose connection to our emotional sensitivity, our emotional acuity. We lose connection to what we can psychologically handle and when we need a psychological rest. It requires a whole new operating system to temper that back to where it's healthy. Boundaries, communication, understanding where I begin and end, saying yes when it's a genuine yes, saying no when it's a genuine no is radically, radically important. I want you to hear this as well. Your yes has no power unless you're willing to say no. If you're unwilling to say no, then you just become a doormat and people are going to take advantage of you because you're always a yes, even when you're overextended. Not healthy. Final point I want to make. I want to distinguish between being nice and being kind. One of the biggest distinctions is you can fake being nice. You cannot fake being kind. Kindness requires sincerity and genuineness. Being nice is, I could wear a mask of being nice. I could acquiesce and sugarcoat and put a facade on to be nice. It doesn't require my sincerity. Do not confuse the two. When you do work like this and you heal that nice guy, when you heal that nice girl, when you heal that people pleaser in you, when you heal that fawn mechanism, you are left with kindness. You will want to be empathetic to people and genuine to people and sincere to people because you are now factored into the equation and you know what it feels like to have a full cup. When you have a full cup and that cup is overflowing, you're going to want to share it with others. That is just a natural state of human being. It's a natural state of our generosity and our empathy. So do not confuse being nice with being kind. Kindness requires your empathy and your sincerity. Do not confuse it for trying to make everyone happy. This is not an invitation or a recommendation to go completely to the other side and be a prick and be a jerk and be a taker. That is not the remedy. Kindness is the remedy. Integrated is the remedy. Grounded, sturdy, clear, committed, courageous, that's the remedy. And that's that center path of harmony. So I hope that this gives an insight and some value, especially with people that struggle from people-pleasing syndrome, nice guy syndrome, fawning mechanism. It's a biological function. It helped us survive emotionally and physically when we were young. It may be time to let it go. It may be hurting and harming your relationships and your prosperity and your health now, today. We want to bring that back into check and temper that to where it is healthy and the light and the shadow portion of that is harmonized and balanced. Hope this was valuable for you. As always, I'm grateful to have you on this journey with me. Till we meet again, be a good man, live a good life, and determine each of those for yourself.